I couldn't imagine that one day I would go in for a prenatal checkup and discover my husband tightly holding another woman's hand, guiding her into the delivery room. That woman was clutching her pregnant belly, screaming like she was about to give birth, while my husband, trembling, said, "Don't worry, I'm always here with you and our baby." I stood frozen, all the surrounding sounds fading away, until a man in a suit appeared, just as he always did whenever I needed someone. My name is Camila, 34 years old, head of a department at a real estate firm in Detroit, and currently 34 weeks pregnant. My belly was heavy, but I was still excitedly preparing for my maternity paperwork appointment and a tour of the birthing center at Ascension Hospital. Before leaving the house, I texted Maverick, my husband and the owner of a restaurant he founded, asking if he was almost home, because he had promised just last night that he'd take me to the hospital today to ease my mind. But just a minute later, my phone buzzed with a short message. "I'm sorry. A surprise VIP guest came in today. Can you reschedule?" I let out a soft laugh, trying to comfort myself with the thought that maybe Maverick was just busy trying to secure the best future for our child. I replied, "Okay," but still decided to drive myself. I didn't want to miss my appointment or trouble Maverick any further. I grabbed my keys, placed a hand on my belly, and told myself, I can still do everything on my own, just as I always have throughout this marriage. As I walked into the maternity ward, surrounded by the scent of antiseptic and the familiar hum of hospital announcements, I paused to check for messages. But my eyes suddenly caught a scene that chilled my entire body. Maverick was standing next to a young pregnant woman, her belly nearly as big as mine, and he was tightly holding her hand. He leaned down to gently wipe sweat from her forehead with a tissue and reassured her in a soft voice I hadn't heard from him in ages. "Don't worry, I'm here." That girl. I recognized her instantly. Lisa, the famous food TikToker Maverick watched every night before bed. I stood frozen, my heart dropping to the cold hospital floor. All surrounding sounds blurred, leaving only the image of Maverick and Lisa. Too close, too intimate, too painful to process. Suddenly, Lisa clutched her belly and screamed like she was going into labor. But at 34 weeks pregnant, I knew exactly what that was. Braxton Hicks false contractions. Right then, Maverick panicked and turned around, and his eyes locked onto mine. In that moment, I saw sheer panic flash across his face, but only for a single breath. Then, he turned away and walked right past me, as if I were a stranger in his way. No greeting, no explanation, not even a brush of the hand on my shoulder. Maverick rushed to Lisa, arms wide to support her like a devoted husband, only not to me. It wasn't pain I felt. It was numbness. Numb to the point, even my breathing grew heavy. But instead of breaking down, I heard my own voice speak, cold and steady, in a way I didn't expect. "My baby will not be born in the same hospital as his. I want to change hospitals immediately. I'm thinking Henry Ford Hospital, 15 miles away." I turned and walked out of the place where my husband had just abandoned me like I never existed in his life. Snow began to fall thick across Detroit as wind lashed my face in the hospital parking lot. A storm of anger, humiliation, and panic made my legs tremble, but I held myself steady. I pulled out my phone and called Mike, my best friend from college, now a veterinarian nearby, and someone who always showed up when I needed him. The moment he heard my broken voice, he said, "Stay where you are. I'm coming." 20 minutes later, Mike's headlights lit up the hospital lot. He jumped out, helped me into his car with concern etched into his face, and gripped the steering wheel tight as he drove me away from Ascension Hospital. We sped through the snow toward Henry Ford Hospital, completely unaware that within a few hours, my life would be rewritten forever. But barely 3 miles out of downtown Detroit, everything came to a halt. The I-94 ahead was frozen in traffic, red brake lights stretching all the way to the horizon. Mike tapped the wheel and muttered, "No, not now." But my body had already answered for me. A searing pain tore from my back down through my belly. Folding me over, I clutched the car door, gasping for breath. And I knew This wasn't false labor anymore. This was real. Mike, I think it's happening, I said between ragged breaths. Mike's face turned pale. He looked at the packed traffic, then at me, then instantly turned on the blinker and began nudging the car onto the shoulder. Horns blared, snow slammed the windshield, but he kept going until we were pressed against the guardrail. Mike didn't hesitate. He dialed 911 immediately. His voice was trembling but steady. My wife is in labor, and the baby's coming right now. I don't know if he accidentally called me his wife, or if I misheard, but those words caught in my chest in a way I wasn't ready for. After ending the call, Mike fumbled with his phone, hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped it, and pulled up YouTube. Amid the chaos, he muttered, "Emergency birth in a car. Okay, okay." The video screen reflected in my eyes. Some doctor explaining how to handle an emergency delivery. Never in my life did I think I'd be giving birth like this. On a freeway, in the snow, with a vet. Mike reclined my seat, took off his coat and covered my legs, then awkwardly but determinedly followed the video's instructions. Outside, the blizzard howled, shaking the car. Inside, the world had shrunk into this cramped SUV, filled only with my heaving breaths and Mike's constant voice. Breathe, breathe, I'm right here. Another contraction hit, so strong it made me clutch the seat frame, my whole body trembling. I screamed from the pain, tears spilling unchecked. Mike! It's coming! I cried. Panic flared in his eyes. He looked at the video, then at me, then down, disbelieving that he was about to deliver his best friend's baby on the freeway. But he did. He caught Noah's head as it slowly emerged into his shaking hands. Okay, Camilla, one more push. I've got you. His voice cracked, but his hands were steady, and within seconds, like a miracle, Noah's first cry pierced the storm, filling the SUV as it shook with the wind. Mike began to cry too. He was trembling so badly he had to take several deep breaths before cutting the umbilical cord with a pair of medical scissors from the first aid kit. He wrapped Noah in his hoodie, pressed him against his chest for warmth, and whispered hoarsely, "He's okay. Camila, he's okay." And right then, we heard the distant sound of an ambulance, red and blue lights reflected across the snow, glowing in the rearview mirror like a signal that a new chapter was about to begin. When the EMTs opened the car door, they stared in disbelief at Mike cradling Noah with trembling hands, while I looked only at my baby, small, pink, perfect, and the only reason I still had the strength to go on. I had just given birth, on I-94, in the middle of a life falling apart. But when Noah cried, I knew. This wasn't the end. It was the first time I'd truly been rescued from a marriage that had long since rotted away. But I barely had time to hold Noah when the paramedics spoke up, their voices firm, leaving me no choice. "We have to take you to the nearest hospital." I asked, my breath still trembling. "Is Henry Ford far?" One of them answered with a sentence that cut straight through my heart. "Over 10 miles. The closest hospital is Ascension Hospital." Ascension Hospital, the very place I had just fled from after witnessing my husband cheating right before my eyes. And now, I, the woman who just gave birth on a freeway, was being taken right back there. As the ambulance pulled away, siren echoing through the snowy night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Everything I had tried so hard to keep inside cracked open. I broke down and cried, not from postpartum pain, but from humiliation, fury, and betrayal so intense it made it hard to breathe. I had just given birth. Yet I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital I chose. I had just given birth, yet my husband wasn't here. I had just given birth, and the one who called me wife wasn't Maverick. It was Mike. Mike followed the ambulance closely. Every time we slowed on the icy roads, I saw his headlights glaring in the rearview mirror, never leaving me for a second. When the ambulance arrived at Ascension's gates, Mike hit the brakes, jumped out of his car, and rushed over just as they wheeled me out. He carried my coat, held Noah tightly in his arms, as if it were his personal duty, and told the nurse in a voice firmer than I'd ever heard from him, "I'm accompanying her. I'll handle all the paperwork." As they rolled me into the postpartum ward, I stared at the blindingly white ceiling, the harsh neon lights burning my eyes. This was the same ceiling, the same hallway, where just hours ago I had watched Maverick holding another woman's hand. And now, I was back here to give birth. The shame of it sliced through me like a cold blade. Mike handed Noah to the nurse for checkup and then returned to sit by my bed. He didn't ask if I was okay. He simply placed a warm cup of water on the table, pulled a chair close to the bed, and softly said, "Camilla, rest, I'm here." That sentence, gentle in a way I hadn't heard in years. I couldn't sleep that night, partly from pain, partly from humiliation and anguish. But Mike stayed awake the entire time. He held Noah when he cried, changed his diapers, soothed him in ways I had never seen from Maverick, tenderly, patiently, and with deep care. Every time I opened my eyes, I saw Mike still sitting there, his back slightly hunched, dark circles under his eyes, watching over me and the baby with every breath. In that moment, watching Noah sleep peacefully in Mike's arms, I suddenly realized the one standing by me on the most painful day of my life wasn't my husband. It was the man who had quietly loved me for years. And at that exact moment, it was like a door swung open in my mind. I needed the truth. I needed to know when Maverick had started betraying me and who Lisa really was in his life. I couldn't let myself drown in shame and unanswered questions any longer. I reached for my phone, hand still trembling from exhaustion after giving birth. I opened my contacts and found the name I hadn't thought I'd ever need again. Linda Becker. She used to be a client who bought a house I brokered. Now, she was the founder of a well-known private investigation firm in Detroit. I sent her a brief but clear message. "Linda, I need to investigate my husband for cheating as soon as possible." 3 minutes later, Linda called. Her voice was sharp, fast, and had that crisp tone of someone who'd spent years in the field. "Camilla, I'm on it top priority. Send me everything you've got." No questions, no small talk. As if she'd seen too many stories like mine and knew exactly what was going on from one line of text. I opened my photo library and started forwarding Linda everything. Screenshots of Lisa appearing in Maverick's TikTok history. Nights he said he was out, playing sports with coworkers. A photo of his work calendar that always seemed suspicious. Timestamps of when he disappeared without explanation. And vague text messages I had ignored because I trusted my husband. Linda replied with one line. "Enough, I'm on it." Lying in the postpartum bed, Noah breathing steadily beside me, and Mike standing silently at my side, I saw Linda's next messages come in. "I'm sending a team to his restaurant. Another group will follow Lisa at her Midtown apartment. I'll update you hourly." Somehow, reading those texts felt like reclaiming a tiny piece of control over this chaotic life. Like for the first time in months, I had permission to be angry, to be suspicious, and to take action. Mike placed his hand gently on my shoulder, his voice low and steady like he was anchoring me in the storm. "Camilla, you did nothing wrong, he did." I closed my eyes and tried to steady my breath. For the first time in my entire marriage, I was allowing myself to look truth in the face, no matter how ugly it was. And I knew this was only the beginning. I don't remember when I fell asleep after that. When I opened my eyes, morning sunlight was filtering into the postpartum room through thin white curtains. The postpartum pain still throbbed, but what clenched my chest tighter was the bitter weight still hanging over me. I reached for my phone, and there it was. A new email from Linda, sent at 5:42 a.m., its subject line sharp as a blade. "Preliminary report. Open immediately." My heart pounded. I opened the email with fingers trembling from both fear and fury. The first line hit me like a bucket of ice water. "Maverick and Lisa met at the Detroit Foodie Fair last September." Detroit Foodie Fair. The event Maverick once said, "I'm going to meet new spice suppliers." So that was where he met his mistress. I swallowed the bitterness, scrolled to the next line. They've had scheduled meetups every Thursday afternoon. I closed my eyes every Thursday afternoon. The same day Maverick always told me, I'm playing sports with the guys. Just leave the door unlocked for when I get back. And I believed him so deeply, I never even questioned. So blindly, I didn't even notice my own isolation. Linda had attached a folder of photos. It took me a few seconds to steady my breathing before opening it. The first photo, Maverick holding Lisa's hand as they walked into a maternity clinic in Midtown. Second photo, the two of them sitting close together in the waiting room, Maverick brushing Lisa's hair back while she rested her head on his shoulder like they'd been together forever. Third, fourth, fifth photos, all of Maverick taking Lisa to her prenatal appointments across different weeks. Then, I opened the video Linda included. A hallway camera recording Maverick opened the clinic door, one arm around Lisa's waist, the other shielding her belly like it was a treasure of his own. I shivered, I couldn't breathe. Not because I still loved Maverick, but because of the bitter realization that I had been standing outside his life without even knowing it. But the final blow came in the last photo in the folder. Maverick holding Lisa backstage after a cooking live stream. Studio lights glowed on their faces, close, intimate, and with that unmistakable look of two people who believed they were justified even as they destroyed someone else. I stared at that photo for a long time. No tears, no screams. Just the hollow, heavy sense that someone had slammed a door shut in front of me. The door to a marriage I'd carried alone for 5 years. Mike stepped into the room just as I took a deep breath. He looked at the screen, then at me, with eyes full of quiet understanding that needed no words. I said softly, as if the decision was made with that very breath. Mike, I can't go back to that man anymore. There was nothing left to hold on to. I had barely finished speaking to Mike when my phone buzzed again. Linda had sent another email, subject line, important. I opened it, and the first image sent a chill straight down my spine. Lisa's prenatal blood work. Baby's blood type AB. I scrolled down. Lisa's blood type, B. Fetus's blood type, AB. Test date, file ID. Everything clearly documented. I stared at those two lines, and every bit of high school biology came flooding back. A mother with blood type B can only have a child with blood type AB if the father carries an A allele. And Maverick. I remembered clearly, he's blood type O. Blood type O cannot produce a child with blood type AB. No matter how he tries to feign ignorance, deny it, or cling to excuses, this is simply impossible. A heavy silence filled me before it turned into a sharp, bitter laugh. Not because it was funny, but because Maverick's stupidity was so ridiculous, it was almost laughable. He had abandoned his wife, who was in actual labor, to run after a child that couldn't even possibly be his. Nothing more than the perfect bait Lisa had laid. Mike took my phone, read a few lines, then clenched his jaw, his face flushing red with anger on my behalf. He said, each word like a blade. He got played, completely played, Camila. I sank into the pillow, feeling strangely lighter, but also more hollow. Not because Maverick had been deceived, but because all this time he treated me like he had another family, another responsibility, another child. And yet, that entire secret life was nothing but a joke. And this blood test, sharper than any word, was the blade that severed everything between me and Maverick. I was still staring at the phone screen, caught in that strange mix of bitterness and relief, when the hospital room door swung open. Maverick walked in. He held a massive bouquet of red roses, so large it obscured half his body, the exact flowers I hated most, the ones he always claimed every woman loves, except his own wife. He stood there awkwardly at the threshold like an actor who'd wandered onto the wrong stage. His t-shirt was wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling. He tried to sound gentle. Camila, I'm sorry. I cut him off. I didn't have the energy for another recycled apology from a man who no longer saw me as his wife. I looked him dead in the eyes, voice calm and terrifying in its steadiness. I'm sorry, Maverick, but You don't have a child. Maverick froze, as if someone had punched him in the chest. "C- Camilla, what are you saying?" he stammered, still holding that absurd bouquet, his other hand beginning to shake. I handed him my phone, the test results already pulled up. For the first few seconds, he furrowed his brows, trying to read. A second later, he started shaking his head, lips moving. By the third second, his face went pale. The only thing left in his eyes was sheer devastation as he read the lines over and over. Mother, type B, fetus, type AB. And below that, father must contain a allele. We both knew Maverick was type OO, can never produce AB. Never. Maverick couldn't say a word. His hand fell limp, the bouquet dropping to the floor with a dry, hollow thud that echoed through the silent room. He took a step back, then collapsed into the chair beside the bed as if his legs had given out. And then he cried. Not tears of regret, but the broken sobs of someone who realized they'd bet everything and lost. He held his head in his hands, gasping. Camilla, I didn't know. I thought. But I had no room left in me for this kind of explanation. I had just given birth, I had been betrayed. I had just discovered that my husband had been duped by the very person he chose over his own family. I was done. I looked at Maverick, my eyes not angry, just cold. Leave, I need rest. He looked up, eyes red, and for the first time in years, looked at me like he had just lost the most valuable thing in his life. But I said nothing else. I turned my face toward Noah, my real child, my source of strength, and waited in silence for Maverick to close the door behind him. The door slowly closed, silence falling like snow over a Detroit night. And I knew that moment marked the end of the marriage I'd spent years trying to hold together. I sat still for a few minutes, listening to Noah's steady breathing beside me, then turned to Mike. He was still there, eyes filled with concern, waiting for me to say something. I took a deep breath, my voice hoarse after hours of pain, both physical and emotional. Mike, do you know any good divorce attorneys? Mike wasn't surprised. He just nodded, like it was something he had prepared for all along. Yes, he said. My cousin, Scarlett Hayes. She's one of the best divorce lawyers in Detroit. Tough, sharp, and always fights for the ones who've been hurt. I didn't wait until tomorrow. I didn't want my heart delayed a second longer. Mike gave me her number. I called, my hand still trembling from postpartum weakness, but my voice strangely calm. Scarlett, this is Camilla. I want to file for divorce today. Scarlett didn't ask much, not because she didn't care, but because she heard enough in just 3 sentences to understand everything. A woman who just gave birth, was betrayed, abandoned in a hospital, and emotionally devastated. She asked me to send everything I had. Photos, evidence, emails, blood test results. I sent them all. It took less than 3 minutes, and less than 2 hours later, Scarlett called back. Her tone professional, but not cold. Camilla, I've prepared the divorce filing. I'll submit it today. I'm also filing for sole custody on your behalf. I gripped the phone tighter, shocked at how fast things were moving. But this was exactly what I needed. A closure. A door slammed shut with finality. Scarlett continued, firm and assured. With the evidence of Maverick's affair and your current psychological condition postpartum, I can guarantee you full custody of Noah Maverick will be limited to supervised visitation only. I closed my eyes, letting out a long breath, one I hadn't fully taken in months. And in that cold, sterile hospital room, I felt something strange. Not pain, not rage, but freedom. Mike placed a steady, gentle hand on my shoulder. Camilla, you're doing the right thing. And for the first time in my entire marriage, I believed I was truly walking in the right direction. I was so exhausted, I fell asleep right after. But the next morning, as sunlight filtered into the postpartum room, my phone buzzed again. A new email from Linda, subject line, Final report, read when you're calm. I took a deep breath and opened it. And what I saw chilled me to the bone. Lisa wasn't acting alone. I scrolled down. each line like a fresh blade. Behind Lisa was Lily, her college friend, the one who had a crush on Maverick before he met and married you. Lily! I sank into my pillow. A name I hadn't heard in years. But the unease she left in my memories had never completely disappeared. Back in college, Lily openly liked Maverick. But Maverick chose me. After that, Lily vanished from our lives, as if she had accepted the outcome. Turns out, she had quietly nursed a grudge all these years. Linda continued. Lily and Lisa met at a TikTok content workshop. Lily was the one who approached Lisa first. She shared her story from the heartbroken friend perspective, triggering Lisa's desire to protect her sisterhood. Together, they devised a detailed plan. Lisa would lure Maverick into cheating, fake a pregnancy, create emotional dependency, convince Maverick he was the father, and ultimately destroy Camilla's marriage. I gripped my phone so tightly, my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just betrayal. Not just an affair. It was a meticulously crafted plan. A scheme with one clear target, me. Linda wrote one final line that twisted my gut. They did it all. For revenge. Not for love, not for family, not for a child, but simply to punish me. The woman they believed had stolen Maverick all those years ago, even though all I had done was be the one he chose. I sat in silence. Not shocked, just struck by how cruel people can be, especially those you thought were long gone from your life. Mike noticed my pale face and gently asked, "Did Linda find something?" I handed him the phone. He read for a long while, then exhaled sharply, like trying to contain his own fury. "Camilla, people like that don't deserve a place in your life." I nodded, not in agreement with Mike, but in affirmation to myself. I would never let anyone sabotage my life again. Time passed. 3 weeks later, on a quiet afternoon, I sat on a rocking chair in the living room of my new home, cradling Noah in my arms. His peaceful little face so pure, it made me want to cry from gratitude. In that moment, my phone rang. Linda's name appeared on the screen. I answered, not expecting the storm in her voice, furious and sarcastic all at once. "Camilla, karma came faster than I thought. Listen to this." I held Noah close and listened. Linda detailed the unraveling of the lives that tried to ruin mine. Lisa just lost over 12 brand deals. My eyes widened. Linda continued, "Her management company is demanding damages estimated in the millions. She can't afford it." I let out a long breath, not from joy, but from a strange mix of chill and justice. Linda added, "Lisa is officially bankrupt, and she just applied for government assistance to raise her child." I looked at Noah, gently caressing his cheek. My child was born in a snowstorm and became the beginning of something new. Those who chose the wrong path were paying for it. Linda wasn't finished. As for Lily, her reputation is destroyed. Friends have cut ties. No one in the content creator community wants to work with someone who plotted to wreck a marriage. She's completely blacklisted. I didn't respond. Not because I wished Lily pain, but because I had only ever wanted peace. Sometimes, life delivers payback colder than we expect. Then, Linda's tone softened. "And Maverick? Word is, he's fallen into severe depression. His restaurant had to temporarily close. He's not mentally fit to run it. No one standing by him, not even his family." I closed my eyes. Not joyful, not smug, just a quiet emptiness, like a room freshly cleared of dust and noise. I whispered, "Thank you, Linda." She replied, "No, Camilla. Thank you for choosing to rise. Not everyone can." I looked down at Noah sleeping soundly on my chest. Those who did wrong were facing their consequences. And me, I was walking toward the light. 3 weeks after that call from Linda, I stood in front of the wooden door of a new home in Grosse Pointe, right by the lake, holding Noah in my arms. The house had a white porch, slate stone steps, and a backyard that opened directly onto the shimmering water. The moment I stepped inside, I knew. This was where my life would begin again. I used all of my savings, plus my company's maternity insurance payout, to buy this house. It wasn't big, it wasn't luxurious, But it was peaceful, a place with no echoes of fights, no strange perfume lingering on shirts, no cold glances from Maverick. I placed Noah into the new wooden crib and listened to his steady breathing, then leaned against the wall. In that silence, I realized I no longer feared nighttime. I wasn't afraid of returning to a cold house. I was safe. That afternoon, Mike stopped by. He brought a homemade seafood pizza, my favorite, and a small toy for Noah. He didn't walk in like a hero. He walked in like someone who had always been there. Just waiting for me to be strong enough to see it, Mike helped me install bookshelves, checked the heating system, changed light bulbs, but never crossed any emotional lines. He never pushed, never hinted, never asked for anything. He only said one sentence, soft as a breeze. "Camilla, when you're ready, I'll be here. But for now, I just want you and your baby to be okay." And for the first time in years, I felt something I never had with Maverick. Safety kindness. Presence without conditions. I picked up Noah and held him close, his cheek against my chest. Outside, Lake Michigan reflected a golden-orange sunset, calm, gentle, like my life was finally being rewritten by my own hand. In the middle of the night, I woke up to Noah stirring. I lifted him gently, feeling his tiny warmth pressed against my chest, and in that quiet moment, I watched his sleeping face. His little lips softly pursed, his long lashes fluttering with baby breaths. And suddenly, I understood something I had only vaguely sensed over the past few weeks. The night I gave birth on the freeway had saved me from the toxic life I once mistook for marriage. If I had made it to Henry Ford that day as planned, if there had been no snow, if Mike hadn't picked me up, if Noah hadn't been born in that old SUV on I-94, I might still be trapped in the spiral Maverick built of indifference, betrayal, and lies. I laid Noah back into his crib, then opened the journal I bought at the small store near my new home on moving day. I wrote with the full truth I had avoided for years. I gave birth to Noah in a snowstorm, but it was he who delivered me from the storm of life. I set down the pen, took a deep breath, and for the first time in what felt like forever, my chest felt light, as if someone had finally lifted a boulder off my heart. The next evening, a light mist settled over Grosse Pointe. Mike sat on the porch steps, holding a cup of hot tea, while I sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket. Noah was asleep, and behind us, the house glowed with a warm light I'd never known in the cold silence of my old home with Maverick. We sat in silence for a long time, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who truly understand each other. Mike looked out at the lake for a while, then turned to me. Under the porch light, his eyes looked both strong and vulnerable. "Camilla," he said quietly, "I've kept something to myself for over a decade." I turned toward him, my heart skipping just a beat. He took a deep breath. "I've liked you since college. But you chose Maverick, so I respected that." I couldn't respond. Not because I was shocked. Not because I felt the same. But because, for the first time in years, there was a man truly on my side. Without condition, my throat tightened, but not from romantic emotion, from safety, from sincerity, from a presence I had never experienced in my marriage. I looked at Mike for a long moment and could only say one thing, my voice trembling but deeply honest. "Thank you for being here." Mike didn't move closer, didn't reach out. He just smiled, a patient, deep, warm smile. "I'm here, Camilla. When you're ready, you'll know." In that moment, I didn't feel alone anymore. I saw a future, and I wasn't afraid of it. The next morning, as if I'd finally realized I was strong enough to stand, I sent an email to Scarlett, my attorney, requesting an update to the divorce filing I wrote. I want Maverick's visitation rights with Noah limited to 2 hours per month, supervised. Scarlett called back almost immediately. "Camila, with the evidence we have, this request is entirely reasonable. I'll file the amendment today." And just like that, I felt lighter. For the first time, I was setting boundaries for my life and for my child. To heal, I enrolled in a postpartum yoga class at the community center nearby. I was shy at first, but 10 minutes in, I found myself blending in among women like me. Single mothers, betrayed women, those rebuilding from ruin, we shared stories. I realized I wasn't alone. Many strong women had stood up before me, and now I was one of them. One night, while preparing a bottle for Noah, I heard a light noise in his room. Like soft footsteps circling his crib, I froze, heart pounding. I rushed in, afraid someone had broken in, or worse, that a wild animal had wandered in. But when I turned on the light, I froze in shock. A large golden Labrador retriever was lying quietly beside Noah's crib. No destruction, no noise. Just lying there, head resting on the crib rail like he was guarding my son. I panicked and called animal control. They arrived within 10 minutes, gently took the dog, and said, "If no owner claims him in 7 days, we'll look for someone to adopt him." 7 days passed. On a crisp morning, animal control called back, their voice soft. "Miss Camila, no one has claimed the dog. Would you like to adopt him?" I looked at Noah sleeping, then at the crib, where that dog had laid peacefully beside him all night without harm. I knew my answer. Yes, I'll adopt him. When they brought the dog back, he ran straight to Noah's room, lying down beside the crib, just like before. As if he knew exactly where he belonged, I stroked his head and whispered, "Welcome home, buddy." That night, I told Mike the story over the phone. He was silent for a few seconds, then chuckled gently, like he believed in something bigger. "Camilla, that's a miracle, it's no coincidence. Maybe Noah needed a protector, and the universe sent him one." I looked at Buddy, lying close to Noah's crib, his gentle eyes silent as an angel on 4 legs. And I realized that new boundaries weren't just about keeping the wrong people out. They were about welcoming the good in. A few days later, Detroit was strangely clear and bright. I decided to drive Noah out to the lake for some fresh air. Buddy hopped excitedly into the back seat, like he knew this was a special outing. We drove along Lake St. Clair, the deep blue water stretching out like a giant mirror, reflecting the sky. The lake breeze blew in through the window, lifting a few strands of hair from my cheek. For the first time in ages, I inhaled deeply and felt my lungs truly open, my chest light. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Noah was asleep in his car seat, his face so peaceful it felt like the world could stop just to admire him. His tiny hand reached out instinctively to hold mine whenever I reached back. Beside him, Buddy lay quietly, head resting on the seat like he was standing guard with all the loyalty in the world. In that moment, I smiled, gratefully, with no bitterness. I whispered softly, clearly, as if speaking into the wind, "Thank you, life, for removing the wrong people from mine." As we neared the lake parking lot, the setting sun cast a golden-orange glow over the water, glittering like scattered stars. I lifted Noah from the car, Buddy walking close beside me. Like a loyal shadow, I stood by the vast lake, letting the sunlight touch Noah's face. He opened his eyes, squinting at the sun, then nestled into my shoulder. In that moment, I knew my life had entered an entirely new chapter. No more storms, no more lies. Only light, peace, and a future I could finally trust. Buddy stood close at my feet, lake winds blowing over the three of us. The golden light bathed everything, like the beginning of a new season of life. And in that warmth, I understood. Freedom isn't about running from someone. Freedom is knowing you're walking towards something better. If my story resonated with you, if you believe every woman deserves respect and the chance to find her freedom, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need a gentle reminder that storms pass and light always waits at the end of the road. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking this journey with me. I'll see you in the next story.